Hello, this is Michelle from Simply Scave Handmade, and this is a video tutorial for hand quilting. When I first started quilting, I worked on very small projects, basic pieces of material, and basic quilting designs. I wanted to get the feel of the fabric, the needle, the thimble, and work on gauging my stitches to the length that I was comfortable with. Today, I'm quilting a small sampler project. It's been pinned and basted, ready to go. I've put it into a quilting frame. This hoop is a quilter's hoop. You'll notice it's thick. It has a big bolt with lots of expansion room to help it get around the layers of the fabric. And this kind of quilt hoop is made to stand up to the heaviness of quilt sandwiches. Any size quilt can be quilted in a hoop. You don't have to have a frame. A full bed quilt can be done on the hoop, as well as a small project or a baby quilt. I do want to show you what happens if you use an embroidery hoop to try to quilt with. I tried to use this and it broke. An embroidery frame is just too thin and flimsy to stand up to all the weight of a quilt, so you really do want to look for and find a hoop. This one is oval, but they come in round and they come in all sizes. This is a 14-inch hoop, but they come smaller than that. The key is nice heavy hoop, very sturdy, and it will last for a long time. When I quilt, I like to use a cotton thread that's made for hand quilting, and I like it to be close to the color of my project. So if this is white, I like an off-white or cream or a beige color. For darker fabrics, I try to match as close as possible. My personal preference in quilting is not to have my quilt stitches detract from the design or the piecework on the top of my quilt. You may feel differently, and that's okay. If you want your stitches to stand out, your beautiful hand quilting to stand out, please feel free to use the color you're comfortable with and make the impression on your quilt that you want to have. For the purpose of this video, though, I'm going to use red, something that will stand up, and hopefully you'll be able to see it better. When I sit down to quilt, I try to sit upright and have something for my hands to rest on. If I'm in a rocking chair or at a couch, I prop a pillow under my arms that I can rest my quilt frame on. If I'm at a table like this one, I want to make sure I have a good posture and my arms are at a comfortable distance, and then I can see the frame really well. Just like when you sit at a machine to sew and you want everything right here in front of you, you want the same thing when you're hand quilting. If you don't, you're going to be sore and achy, and that's just not good. When I sit down to quilt, I keep a basket nearby that has all my supplies in it, pin cushion, something to mark with, my thimbles, my scissors. They're all here and right easy at my hand. And if I decide to move to a different chair to quilt, I can easily take it with me. Some of the basic supplies are, of course, thread, a good small sharp pair of scissors, a needle and thread. I use a small quilting needle called a sharp, and I like an open thimble. A thimble is a very personal thing, and you have to really try them out and figure out what you like. I personally like a thimble that has an open top to let my skin breathe and to keep my nail from being all bunched up in the top of the needle. I don't quilt with the tip of my finger. I quilt with the front of my finger. I personally quilt with my middle finger thimble, but it's a personal preference. Many people quilt with their pointer or their middle, and I'm right-handed, so my thimble goes on my right hand. When we start to quilt, we thread our needle and we put a simple knot in the base of our thread. And we're going to hide that knot in our quilt layers so that no one sees it. My left hand goes on the underside, and I use my middle finger to push the fabric up from the bottom. That gives me control and stability. I look at my project and find a good starting point. About a ½ inch away from that point, I'm going to slide my needle between the top layer and the batting, not going all the way through to the back. And I'm going to push it up where I want to start. I'm going to bring that needle all the way through very carefully, and when my knot catches right there, I'm going to give it a gentle tug and a scrape with my thumb and hide that needle in the layers of the fabric. If you'll notice, you do not see it on the back because we didn't go all the way through. It's carefully tucked in to the batting layer. When you quilt, comfortably put your hand underneath and use either your middle or first finger to push the fabric. When you start, the needle is perpendicular, straight up and down, where you want to start stitching. A stitch can be as tiny or as large as you need it to, but when I first started quilting, I confess my stitches were rather large, and that's okay. The point is to get comfortable with the method of quilting and work on stitch length later. So we start with our needle straight up and down, resting here, our hand underneath, the finger is supporting that needle, but not being poked by it. And this is on top. You want to rock that needle back and push up from the bottom. This front thumb pushes the fabric down, creating a little hill for us to push that needle through with. And then we just catch it and bring it through the fabric. And there we have one simple stitch. Again, we move to the length we want that stitch to be and go straight down and touch our finger underneath, catching the bottom fabric. Rock it out, push up from the bottom and push down from the front with our thumb, creating a little hill, and push our needle through. When you get comfortable with the movement, you can load more than one stitch, which means we stand up, rock back, pop that needle just a little way, and then do it again, repeating the motion, and that's called loading a stitch. As you can see, there are 2 stitches on this needle right now, and we just push it through and pull it back. When I first started, I found it very difficult to get that motion going. So what I want to show you without the fabric is that you push it through all 3 layers. This needle wants to go all 3 layers, and it just bumps. The finger underneath is just pushing that back up like this. So when it goes through the fabric, it's just bumping our finger and pushing up. And then we use that thumb in front to hold the fabric down and slide that across. It takes time, and it's not something that you want to be frustrated or stressed with. Hand quilting is relaxing. Sit down, breathe, do a few stitches. If you feel tense, walk away and come back to it later. This is something I do when I'm sitting down listening to the radio or the birds outside my window, or when I'm watching television. It's repetitive and comfortable. I hope that you'll take some time and practice doing some simple straight stitches on a piece of fabric and see how you like it. If you have any questions, please contact me at simplyscafe@yahoo.com or leave a message in the comment box.